Matthew Stafford banged up, and I think it's a story that has gone underreported. Some other quarterback controversies and competitions in training camp to watch, and a whole lot more on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love our everydayers. Thanks for hanging with us, and appreciate all the new listeners as well. If you are new to the podcast, we would love it if you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Helps us out tremendously. Get us in that algorithm, and we can find more listeners that want to hang out with us and talk NFL football every single day, as we do here on Peacock and Williamson. Today's episode of P&W is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Let's start with the Matthew Stafford story in Los Angeles. It's kind of gone, I think, underreported, and we've been meaning to talk about it and even had other things that, you know, kind of took priority over it because there's not a lot of hard news with the Matthew Stafford story, and you shouldn't expect him to play in the preseason anyway because the Rams never play anybody in the preseason. But he's not practicing at all. And the Rams this offseason thought really long and hard about just moving on from Matthew Stafford. And he's had a lot of injuries over the years, dating back to his days in Detroit, but especially recently he's had shoulder and elbow, and now it's a back injury, and he's dealing with some stuff. He's maybe the most important singular player in the NFC, Matt. When you really look at how important he is or how much teams are depending on certain players, and a lot of quarterbacks you could probably make that argument for. But I think of all the best teams in the NFL, I think the Rams have the most riding on that one player to, and look, hey, Jimmy Garoppolo, he might be able to win you a game or two, but Matthew Stafford's different. And this is kind of an underreported story because he's getting towards the end of his career and these injuries mount up, and it seems like it's always something with him.
I know. And part of it's because he plays so hard and took such a beating, and he's such a tough guy, and I respect his style of play in the utmost manner. But I think you have to worry. I mean, we're recording this noon Eastern on Monday, and the Rams haven't practiced yet, but he is, quote, scheduled to do individual, which isn't much, guys. You know, if you watch an NFL practice, that could just be soft toss. That could just be taking snaps and rolling out. I mean, it might not be real putting torque on the body, or certainly not any kind of physical confrontation at all. And you mentioned Jimmy. Some reports out of LA are Stetson Bennett is pushing Jimmy for the 2 job, you know, and I don't get that as Stetson Bennett's this incredible player all of a sudden. It's, man, nobody looks good here. It's basically the way I take that. They're in it to win it. You know, they were very much made a lot of noise in the playoffs. And I think that they realize that they can be they can hang with the Eagles and the Lions in that conference without a doubt on their best day. But their left tackle's dealing with blood clot issues. And if you look at Stafford's numbers, when pressured versus a clean pocket, they're about as stark as any quarterback in the league right now. So if he didn't handle pressure, I mean, if pressure's starting to affect him more than ever, and center and left tackle are issues, and you're less mobile than you were, or less apt to take a hit because of a back that I'm sure will linger the entire time. Not to mention, you did mention the contract situation. They decided to keep him, push the chips in one more year. It could bite him huge. I mean, as I'm sitting here thinking, they do have that extra first-round pick. So if this is a disaster season, maybe they just get their quarterback and move on, but it's a little early in early August to be talking about a disaster season already. There should be a Super Bowl season, you know?
Yeah. The Rams are definitely a team to look out for because they've already kind of dipped their toes in that water, and it could be a good quarterback class, and they'll be aggressive. They'll maybe go up and get a guy if they need to. That's just how the organization is. So that's definitely a story to monitor kind of the whole season. It's good news that he's able to at least start to work on the side because, look, we still have 30-something days to get ready for that opening kickoff weekend and get him right. So he still has a month to figure things out, get some practices in. He wasn't going to play in the preseason anyway. That's going to be Garoppolo and Stetson Bennett. So, but get him right. And the fact that he can at least start to do some things on the side is a good sign because he hadn't done anything in Rams camp.
Yeah, and you want to get him acclimated with Adams, I would think, as well, and the new tight end and all those type of things, which I'm sure will come before long. Your point's really well taken, though, about they don't play anybody in the preseason. So while they may get a better hint of where he's at, revving him up in practice, hopefully, and I'm sure that'll be a slow process if he's only just considering doing individuals today, us as fans and analysts probably won't know anything until like a couple days before opening day,
Yeah, like that last week after the cut down and after the preseason games, and then we'll find out he's practicing in full. But he's got a new wide receiver in Devontae Adams that he needs to build a rapport with and build some timing with too. There's a lot of timing is important in that offense. So even if he's not able to practice but able to go finally before the season, that's not a great way to start the year.
I mean, he seems like he's the only big time quarterback that's really facing issues as we stand here on August 4th,
And I wanted to talk about some other quarterback competitions. Garoppolo versus Stetson Bennett is not one of them unless Al for number one, if Stafford is going to be on the shelf to start the year. We've got, there was a note about Hendon Hooker, who they want to get more looks at this preseason. You and I were kind of disappointed in the
what are you doing?
Hall of Fame game that he wasn't the first quarterback in there. So they're going to play him ahead of Allen in the next preseason game. Try to see if Hendon Hooker can win the backup quarterback job to Jared Goff there. That's not a big one. Probably the biggest headliner quarterback competition that could go either way is Daniel Jones versus Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis with the Colts. And you brought this to my attention, the opening depth chart. They did the thing where they don't want to put one guy ahead of the other. So is it Daniel Jones or
the word "or" is in there.
But you put Jones' name first in the "or."
Oh, did they? Okay. I can tell you, maybe I'm sure it's an organization thing, but when preseason depth charts come out, I'm not sure anyone on the football staff even does it, to be honest.
It's a PR thing. Yeah.
It could be a media person.
You've watched some practices, make a depth chart.
And I'm sure Tomlin, or in this case, the Colts head coach, puts a stamp of approval on it, but that's not what they're busy doing. They don't really care what depth chart they expose to the public. But this case, I think it actually matters, because who's your starting quarterback's different than who's the backup left guard,
Right. And putting "or" on there was something that came from the top. They might have said, here's the rough draft. And like, no, let's make this. We want to make this "or." So I think it's an important note. And a job to, it's funny because I think most reporters and most folks, we heard this from Mike Sando, people around the league believe Daniel Jones is going to win that job. But the Colts also kind of would, I assume, want Anthony Richardson to win that job.
That's the impression I'm getting. And again, I hate commenting on camp stuff when you're not there because, with all respect to the beat reporters I know, they just have to write something every day sometimes. It doesn't mean that there's this clear-cut, distinction. But all reports on Richardson have been very positive, because we were worried about his injury back in OTAs and all those things. But training camp apparently has been very good for him. And I'm rooting for him because I think we're too early to write this guy off. Because, in draft meetings before selecting Anthony Richardson, the Colts had to say, this is going to take a little time and patience, guys. Come on. And he's been crushed by injuries, which aren't his fault, but still worry me because his style of play. And I know he tapped out, but can we get over that, please? Does that mean he can't be a starting quarterback the rest of his life because he tapped out once and broke this quarterback code from 100 years ago? I don't know. I was with Wig talking on Locked on NFL on Friday and just reiterated that the quarterbacks like Purdy and Penix and Nix that played a lot of football in college have been good quicker. It's a massive trend the last 5-6 years. And Richardson and Lance didn't play at all, what do we expect?
Cleveland Browns will probably be other good quarterback competition. There's not that many going into the preseason this year, and the Browns one could go any direction. Kenny Pickett's been dinged up. Joe Flacco is kind of expected to be the veteran guy, at least to start preseason games, and we'll see where Kenny Pickett is health-wise if he's able to play the first preseason week. And then it's like the Browns reports are like every other day it's different. It's like, oh, Shedeur Sanders had a great day, and the next day, oh, Shedeur Sanders threw an interception. Dylan Gabriel had a nice day. It was Joe Flacco's job to lose. Kenny Pickett was the guy that took the first snaps in OTA. So I have no idea what to think about the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation, but it's a quarterback competition. It's going to be it. It's going to make those Browns preseason games interesting to watch, I think, for me.
And if you're charting quarterback completion percentage and things like that in any sort of practice environment, let alone an unpadded practice, you might need to re-examine yourself in the mirror a little bit.
Fans want it. The fans want it.
I know.
I report it because the fans want it.
Did I ever tell you the story around here about that?
It was somebody that was like purposely.
Yeah, it was Kent Graham versus Cordell Stewart.
There you go. Yeah.
And Kent Graham realized that in the Pittsburgh press back then, they posted it every day. So he'd just dump it down. He had like an 88% completion percentage. Cordell's out there chucking it all over the field, and he's at like 55 or whatever. So the whole world's thinking, how do you play this guy over Cordell Stewart?
Oh, man. With Cordell Stewart was just an era too early.
I've said that around here. I'm like, you've been first pick in the draft right now.
Yeah.
He came before Vic, and that didn't help him.
Slash. Okay. Next, James Cook, a hold-in for the Buffalo Bills, and a review of the Ravens 2018 class. Why? Because they have become the highest paid draft class in NFL history. Next. It's time to fire it up. Turn it up with 5-hour energy transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor, your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this is a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you need that extra little boost. That's where 5-hour energy comes in. Keep you sharp, keep you energized without the crash like some other caffeinated beverages like coffee and other things. And I know I fight that sometimes, but man, transfusion has become the most popular drink on the golf course these days. And now the 5-hour energy transfusion, you can turn 18 holes into 36 without a problem. All you got to do is go to 5hourenergy.com. That is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use our promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is valid only until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. So whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 into 36 holes, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-hour energy shots in our promo code LOCKEDONGolf today. So James Cook, not at practice. And according to general manager Brandon Beane, apparently he wasn't fully aware that Cook would abruptly stop practicing yesterday. He called it disappointing, noting it's the first real contract dispute during his tenure as general manager, which is kind of hard to believe for a GM who's been doing it a little while. So,
is that true?
Yeah. And
what's going on in Buffalo? Everyone's just happy.
Yeah. I mean, he got his quarterback contracts done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's something to that maybe. Cook is repped by the same agency that just went through the Shamar Stewart dispute in Cincinnati. So that's an interesting note. Beane said that they have remained in communication with Cook's camp. But if you're a running back and you need a new contract, the attrition at that position, it's just one where you can't play. So I could see where Cook went to camp first, couldn't get a deal done to his liking, and before these preseason games start, he put himself on the shelf with a little hold in. So that's what's going on in Bills camp, and a lot of Bills fans were already clamoring for a trade for Terry McLaurin, and so I don't know if there's a tie-in there. Maybe you ship James Cook for Terry McLaurin. I don't know if that's the need for the Washington Commanders, but what do you think? James Cook, not in camp.
Real curious to hear your thoughts on this one, because I could go either way. Because I mean, I'm not huge on paying running backs, and I mentioned, I hear your talk because you're more on the running backs don't matter, don't use a first round pick spectrum than I am for sure. but I also am somewhere on the spectrum, and he does not seem like a great investment at this point. I mean, he's coming off his best year. He's an ascending player, but not a special player. But why I'm on the fence is this team's just so close. That could they win the Super Bowl with Ray Davis? Sure. Will Cook really sit out? Probably not. You're probably going to get this year out of him either way. You just might not get the next couple. Yeah. And you could draft someone in the second round and go with Ray Davis or whatever, probably, and be fine. And he probably wouldn't be that much of a distraction that you couldn't still get to your goals. But they're just so close, and they have a pretty easy schedule. I just don't want to rock the boat this year, but that's probably letting personal get in the way of business. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You don't want to just throw money just because you don't want to negotiate harder, right? I think if they're at the point now where James Cook is, I hate the hold in thing. I think at some point there's going to be a team, and I mean the Raiders just completely released a guy and are going after his guaranteed money. I don't know if that's necessarily that's on the way on the other side of the line, but at some point teams need to find guys who are holding in, right? Because
it's kind of a loophole, obviously.
It's like a loophole for them not to lose money. And I don't think teams want guys to necessarily lose money. They want things to be kind, but you're holding out if you're not practicing, right?
I wonder if next CBA will eliminate that rule altogether where we have to find you. Like, does anybody really win from that? And
it's not like nobody knows. It's like I'm not practicing because of the contract. It's not because I'm actually, but I have to fake an injury. They always have like
now my ankle hurts. Right.
So,
and I guess it could be. See, I've only been around like TJ Watt holding in, and that was like happy as could be. He's in the lunchroom joking with everybody, arm around Tomlin. Hey, Mr. Rooney, how you doing? But I guess you could be a jerk. I mean, you're still there. You're at the meetings. You're at lunch. They're putting you up.
It's just like that. That succubus, right? That bad attitude just brings lets the air out of a room. And I'm sure everyone's have been around coworkers that are like that and they're unhappy for some reason. And that definitely rubs off on people for sure. These are human beings, And I don't know if that's the case for James Cook, but I get where James Cook is at, and you got to try to get that money at the running back position, especially while you can. I don't know what exact dollar figure they're arguing over.
That's what I was going to say, though. I think it's really high. And I remember Dalvin used to ask for the moon, too. Never quite got it, but
yeah. And running backs aren't getting paid as much. Even like the Christian McCaffrey contract, and that one's got a little bit more guaranteed, which was kind of added to it. And he was already the highest paid running back in the NFL, but it's not that hard to get out of those contracts. The money's not that big for running backs. And
you can always fit them under the cap, but do you want to make him the highest paid running back in the league?
And you can get out of him. And that's the thing. Like Saquon Barkley is essentially on a year-to-year contract as it is. But they, rewarded him. And if he gets hurt and falls off the 28-year-old running back cliff, then they can get out from under it very quickly, and it's not a big problem. So in that way, running back contracts they've really come to the point where they're not prohibitive anymore because of how they're structured and how running backs are getting paid. But if he doesn't want to have a structure like that, then I could see not doing it. And I wouldn't do it if I was the Bills. So I
think he wants a lot of guaranteed money, which is that's where I kind of might draw the line in the sand. Like, hey, I'll make you 90% of what Saquon's making, average per year. But I can't give you a huge chunk of guaranteed money like you're a quarterback or an edge rusher or something.
And it's kind of like what we saw with the Terry McLaurin thing, and what we saw with Trey Hendrickson. And it's like, well, you might think you're in the tier with the top guys, but you're not. And so if you're asking for that, you're not going to get it. Period. And
you're not Bijan or Gibbs where you're about to be,
Right. And we got to figure out where you are at so we can pay you correctly. And if your own valuation's off from ours, then that's going to be problematic. And then when it comes to running backs, I'm with the Bills. I would not, play out the season and we'll see. But they didn't really do a lot behind him. And so, are you cool with going into the season if there's an extended holdout?
Yeah, but you really think he's going to miss a game check?
No. I mean, he's not going to miss a game check, so you can play hardball if you're the Bills. But if it does come to that, Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, Darrington Evans, that's the depth chart right now. That's not great either.
I mean, you could trade for like ATN or Singletary or somebody
right.
like
But
that.
ATN's going to want a contract too, and
Right.
it kind of just depends what you can get guys in at whatever number you can. So, the running back money isn't that prohibitive, but I think Cook probably is asking for a different tier of money. Is probably the big hold up there. And if you can structure it in a way that's the attrition battle can be overcome for the team side, then you sign the good running backs. But if not, I mean, again, I'm the West Coast chairman of running backs don't matter. And
I lean that way in this instance too. You know,
Yeah.
like he's good. He helps you win. He's
Really
coming
good.
off a good year. He's a weapon, but I'm not giving you a ton of guarantees.
Something to watch for though, because obviously this one got serious. Is he going to lose game checks? Probably not.
Probably not. Super quick one that's not on the agenda. Now we're talking running backs. I guess several beat reporters reported last night that Nick Chubb in Houston, his burst is gone, that he just looks washed, which doesn't shock me one bit, but that's just not what you wanted to hear after the Mixon injury,
Right. Yeah, that's a tough situation
in
Houston. Has there been an update on the Mixon injury?
I think it's a while.
It's just extended was the we don't have an update there on what the timeline is officially for him. Let's talk Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
Why are we going all the way back to 2018? Well, it was the last draft of a Hall of Fame general manager, and it is now the highest paid draft class in NFL history. Next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Gametime and the Gametime app. And if you're a sports fan, you got to have Gametime in your pocket, because let's say you've ever, and I know everyone's been there. You ever try to go last minute? You want to go head to a ball game, bring some friends and family with you. Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize, I want to be in the stands. I want to watch the game today. Let's go catch a ball game. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. Fantastic deals on last minute seats for football games, NFL, college, Major League Baseball, hockey. You want to go see a concert, a comedy show, a theater event, any of it, you can find those tickets on Gametime. Get up to 60% off those last-minute tickets. With the money saved on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, maybe even just invite a bigger group with you. Gametime makes it all possible. Views from your seat, zone deals, and so much more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So Zach Sieler, defensive lineman for the Miami Dolphins, just got a new contract extension, Matt. And the reason I bring that up is because it is newsworthy, and Zach Sieler is maybe the most underrated player in the entire NFL. A 3-year, $67.7 million contract. But he was not drafted by the Miami Dolphins. And by the way, when we did the Locked On Network Top 100 and Calais Campbell made the squad, heard from a lot of Dolphins fans that were like, Zach Sieler's a better player on that defensive line than Calais Campbell was. But nobody talks about Zach Sieler. So nice to see him get paid. He's coming off back-to-back 10-sack seasons, actually, for the Miami Dolphins now, and has been able to make himself a nice little career after being a walk-on. I got the timeline here. He was a walk-on D2 lineman at Ferris State University. He worked 70 hours a week at Chrysler to make ends meet during the offseason. Was drafted in 2018 by the Baltimore Ravens in the 7th round, waived twice by the Ravens in 2019, claimed off waivers by the Dolphins that offseason, or that season at some point in 2019. Ended up working out and working into the rotation and signed his first contract in the NFL, 3 years, $38 million in 2023. Then the following 2 seasons, 10-sack seasons in both years. The first defensive tackle in Dolphins franchise history to have back-to-back 10-plus sacks seasons, and then now is signed a 3-year, $67 million contract. And so fantastic story with Zach Sieler, one of the most underrated players in the NFL. And a lot of fans don't know him because his path was a little bit non-traditional, and fantastic player, got paid. So good on Zach Sieler. But I think we got to highlight this 2018 draft class by the Ravens now.
Yeah. This is going to sound wrong, but I'm going to say it anyways. I find it kind of funny and interesting that Zach Allen with the Broncos and Zach Sieler basically back-to-back days signed big contracts. And I bet a lot of people are like, why are these guys getting this kind of money? I mean, they're just unassuming white guys. Is kind of what I'm getting, you know what I mean? Like, they don't look like the 320-pound tackle from Bama that's a total badass, defensive tackle. And they're great. They're both really good. Right. Yeah. Boston College, and, like they're not the tackle factories that went to the top 5 and with huge long arms and, the typical look, so to speak. And they're both really, really good players that are a real pain in the butt to play against and deserve every penny,
And I guess it shouldn't be a surprise with all the players in this draft class, but it's great to take a walk down memory lane in how good the 2018 Ravens draft was. And it was the last draft of Ozzie Newsome, which is one of the all-time architects of NFL football rosters and, phenomenal football player as well, like Hall of Famer in every way. Ozzie Newsome, and his swan song, just phenomenal, has now become the highest paid draft class in NFL history. It started with
a lot of big names here. Yeah.
Hayden Hurst, the tight end, first rounder, 25th overall. He's averaging $7.25 million right now. Then they jumped back into the end of round 1 to draft Lamar Jackson, which was the big move. And 32nd overall, he's $52 million per year. Orlando Brown Jr. was the 3rd round pick at offensive tackle, $16 million. Then another tight end who ended up being better than Hurst was Mark Andrews in round 3, $14 million per year. Anthony Everett, a 4th round defensive back, he is $4 million per year. Deshaun Elliott, $6.2 million per year in the 6th round. Bradley Bozeman, 6th rounder, is making $6 million per year. And then in the 7th round, 3 players that have all stuck in the NFL, 7th round was Zach Sieler, who's now making $22 million per year. And then a couple of undrafted rookies that they signed that year who also stuck around the NFL. Darius Williams is getting $10 million per year right now. And Gus Edwards, $5 million per year. So that was all in the 2018 class, not only the 7 rounds of the draft, but even undrafted guys.
That's pretty cool. I'm shocked that somebody actually figured that out. I mean, the most expensive draft class ever. And Lamar carries some weight, but it's pretty awesome. And you mentioned it. I mean, I think a Hall of Fame general manager has to have a really high bar. But Ozzie, to me, definitely checks the box. Back to our Hall of Fame conversation. Is the general manager Ozzie a Hall of Famer? Yes, I absolutely think so. And I think he was even instrumental, like in the move from Cleveland to Baltimore, way back when, like that kind of stuff. And he's clearly a Hall of Fame player too. Yeah. I mean, like that they both check the box. If he didn't do the other, he still should go to the Hall of Fame. My personal remembrance most of that draft, particularly from a Ravens perspective, was I, of course, was at the Steeler facility. They had just taken Terrell Edmonds, great. Mm-hmm. And we're walking into the press box or into the press area where Tomlin's going to do his post first round pick conversation with the GM, Kevin Colbert at the time. And we're all crowding in there and we're about to hit record on it. And I just happened to be shoulder to shoulder with Tomlin because we were walking through the door at the same time. And I told him, Coach, the Ravens just took Lamar. And it happened like a second before that. And he said real bad words because I found out after the Steelers loved Lamar, but they thought that the Ben overlap, it wasn't the year for it. And when he went to the biggest rival, he was just like distraught and upset and said bad words. I mean, that's what I remember most about that. Yeah.
And has since probably uttered many more bad words
over and over. Yeah. Now he's like the best player in the league. Yeah. Yeah, he might be the best player in the league.
Pretty unbelievable. And what a move to go up and get that. And it's funny because he wasn't even the first guy they picked that year. But
right.
They were, they clearly needed a tight end, but they went up, even though they had Joe Flacco at the time, who was a Super Bowl champion, to go get Lamar Jackson at the end of round 1. Like what a way to go out for Ozzie Newsome as GM of the Ravens.
And then this organization has this weird habit of drafting 2 tight ends, and the second one's always better than the first one. They're like Likely's better than Kolar, and
I couldn't even. I was trying to think as soon as you said that, like who was the other tight end they drafted with Likely that year, and I couldn't even think of it.
Charlie Kolar. It's only because I have draft history up here right now. Yeah, and Nick Boyle and Max Williams were in the same class. I mean, there's a couple of them where they take 2 tight ends in the same class. Weird.
Max with 2 X's. Williams.
2 X's, yeah.
There you go. No, so hats off to Ozzie Newsome, one of the all-time greats in NFL. That's a Hall of Famer, right? That's a guy you got to talk about when you're talking about the history of the game in so many different ways.
Trade up for Lamar and still nab the rest of that class is great without him.
After you were already a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Yeah, one of the best organizations in the league without question.
The reason why they're good every year.
Yeah, they make a lot of picks and they hit on a lot of them.
Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. Every day, get those questions in for this week's mailbag episode at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL, or in the comments on YouTube. Subscribe while you're there. Matt and I back tomorrow right here. Peacock and Williamson. Tune in for some special guests this week as well.
Cool.
The network talking about different teams. And it should be a lot of fun. Maybe some Buccaneers, some Cowboys talk as well. Very interesting squad. All coming up on Peacock and Williamson.